Question. Oh, look at this, Olivia. Come on, Olivia. Let's get these questions out there. Are the stitches inside or outside on a tummy tuck, thigh lift, and boobs? I like that question. So, because a lot of people would talk about, are the stitches dissolvable? And the answer to that is, in my hands, full disclosure, this is just me. In my hands, they're dissolvable for all of those operations: tummy tuck, thigh lift, and boobs. We always use dissolvable sutures. Now you're asking the question, but that's not what you're asking, is it? You're saying, are the stitches inside or outside? And again, different with different people. So let's do them one at a time. Tummy tuck. So with a tummy tuck, you have a big long scar in your lower abdomen and a scar around your belly button. So the big long scar along your lower abdomen is inside. You don't see any stitches. So again, all these stitches are dissolvable, but you don't see any stitches. Now the scar around the belly button, I do put stitches on the outside for the scar around the belly button. It's always a difficult shape. It's not quite a circle. It's like a shield shape. We make it into a certain funny shape, and it can be awkward getting into the nooks and crannies. I do a special sort of stitch if you're interested. It's called a Barron stitch. So the problem with you putting stitches on the outside is that you can get stitch marks. You know, like a pirate has a scar with dots, a line with dots on either side of it. Those are stitch marks. So we try and avoid stitch marks. So that's why for that long scar in the lower abdomen, we bury the stitch. There's no stitch to see, so there's no stitch marks. Now, because it's a funny shape, I do put interrupted sutures. You can get a bit more control over an interrupted suture rather than a buried suture. So I'm putting an interrupted suture in. But what I do is I put it through the skin of your belly button, and then I go through the dermis, so not through the skin. So it's buried on the other side, and then I come out through the skin of the belly button. I don't know if I'm making this clear. So actually the stitch marks will be inside the belly button. So there's no stitch marks on the skin on the outside of the belly button, and it's usually inside the cave, so you can't see any stitch marks. But you might see the stitches. So you will see the stitches, to be frank. You'll see the stitches around your belly button, but I deliberately do it so I don't leave any stitch marks on the skin of your abdomen. All the stitch marks are sort of inside your belly button. And some people will do a tummy tuck with dissolvable stitches all the way, and you might do stitches with, you shouldn't have too much of a problem if you did have stitches on the skin of the abdomen. But the problem with using interrupted, or at least stitches on the outside which are dissolvable, is it's unpredictable how long it takes to dissolve. And so if it takes a bit longer than we'd hope to dissolve, there's a bit more likelihood of getting a stitch mark. So we don't very often use dissolvable sutures on the outside, but the belly button is one area. I just coughed live on air. Oh God. The belly button is one area where you might, I use dissolvable sutures on the outside, and tummy tuck, thigh lift, dissolvable all the way, a bit like the tummy tuck one. Boobs, if you're talking about breast augmentation, they are hidden, sorry, not dissolvable, hidden and dissolvable all the way for breast augmentation. For breast lift, they are hidden for most of them, but the confluence of all the stitches at the T-junction, where that scar meets that scar, the T-junction of the breast reduction, that's where you're going to, or breast lift, that's where you're going to get any wound healing problem. And that's a confluence of a lot of stitches. So the last stitch that I always put in, I put in on the outside. I put the knot on the outside, so there's not too many knots down deep. Now it is a dissolvable suture, so it is clear. It's a clear, transparent suture. So you can't actually see the suture, but you might feel it. Sometimes people feel it down at that T-junction when they have had a breast lift or a breast reduction. And they might say, hold on a minute, you've left a stitch. Look, I've got a stitch here, you left it. I'm like, no, I haven't left it. I've deliberately put the knot on the outside rather than burying it, just because there's a lot of knots in that area. So you might notice a knot on the outside on the T-junction of a breast lift or reduction, and you will see some knots on the outside around the belly button of a tummy tuck. But other than that, all the sutures are on the inside for tummy tuck, thigh lift, and boobs. And that, Olivia, is a gold star, because that is a good question. I like that.